Hi there, and after all my recent upscale Lego building, today I'm going to be building a micro version of a classic vintage Apple Mac computer. So this is actually a set which I recently found in my local Tesco supermarket. But any one of you who knows the current Lego catalogue is probably thinking, hang on a minute, that isn't a Lego set, I've never seen that before. And I'm afraid you'd be absolutely right, this is not a Lego set, this is one of those nasty Chinese clone brand sets. But I hear you cry, Jez, you're such a Lego purist, how come you're buying off-brand Lego? And you'd be absolutely right, I am a complete Lego purist, and I don't like buying non-genuine Lego. So what I decided to do was see if I could make these out of genuine Lego parts. Now the company that makes the original sets are called Zuru Max, and this is part of their retro collection. And I have to say several of the models in this collection were really interesting to me. And if this one goes well, I'm going to probably try and build a couple of the others. In the series there was this Apple Mac computer, a vintage telly, a Polaroid camera, a classic 80s stereo system, an old dial telephone, and a mini arcade machine. And out of these 6, the 3 that really interested me were the Apple Mac, the vintage TV, and the stereo. Now because these sets come in these plastic balls, the company that produces them cuts down on larger parts significantly so they can fit all the bits inside. So subsequently that means that I feel this model is a little bit flimsy and not well put together. For example, the keyboard's made out of a load of plates underneath and is really fragile. This bit pops out of the middle, it's only being held on by one stud, and then the other piece here is also only being held on by this jumper plate. Because they couldn't fit an 8x8 plate inside the set, they've made the base out of loads of these 2x4s, which means there's a ton of brickwork inside trying to hold them all together. And that also happens elsewhere. At the back here we've got a 1x1 brick, a 1x1x3 bricks high, and another 1x1, whereas in Lego we could replace all of that with a 1x1x5. Also the whole thing just doesn't seem to go together quite as well as Lego does. You have little gaps between the parts, and also things aren't quite as flush as they would be if they were built out of Lego. So my plan is to build this out of Lego and show you how I do it as I go along, and then at the end hopefully I'll be able to sacrificially destroy this set and never have it in my collection. So please see this as a public service video. I've bought this set and I'm going to show you the parts I need to build it out of actual Lego so that you don't have to buy this set. But just before we get started, a very quick shout out to all my channel members. Thank you so much for your support. And this week we've got 5 new Megafig members who get their name on a brick in the start of my videos. And that means I've only got space for 1 more Megafig member before I'm going to have to rethink my display. And if anyone else is interested in becoming a channel member and getting their name on a brick in my videos, you can click on the join button below this video or the link in the description and that'll tell you how. Or alternatively, if you're buying from lego.com, please consider using my affiliate link in the description below. It doesn't cost you anything, but Lego give me a small commission on everything that people buy. But let's get on to building that Apple Mac. Now this company Now this company do make other collections, but it was the retro collection I was particularly interested in. Being an absolute 80s kid, a lot of these models really struck a chord with me. And the good thing is that these aren't blind packaged, there is a massive picture on the side of the ball to show you which model is inside. So like I said earlier, the first few steps are using a ton of 2x4 plates and then a lot of bricks to hold them all together and stop them falling apart. But as this is Lego and we're not limited by space, an 8x8 plate is a much better place to start. And as we get started, a very quick spoiler, there is actually one piece in this set which isn't produced by Lego. And when we get to that part, depending on your outlook on Lego life, you're either going to think it's the most amazing thing since sliced bread and you wish Lego made it, or you're going to cry heresy and shout it should never be used in anyone's builds. But it's going to come a lot later on when we're building the mouse, so you're going to have to wait until then to find out what the piece is. So firstly, on the back of the 8x8, we're going to put 2 of these grey profile bricks. We're making sure that the lines on them are going crossways on the back, and then we're going to add 2 standard dark grey headlight bricks as well at the back. Then in the corners there's 2 tan 1x1 bricks. Then down the sides we're also going to be using those profile bricks, but this time in tan. And we're going to have 1, 2, 3 down this side with the flutes going horizontally, and then 3 down the other side as well, and we're nearly done our first layer. And then along the front we've got a 1x1 regular brick, then we've got a headlight brick in tan. This is somewhere for us to plug in our keyboard, and then we've got 2 1x3s, and that is our first layer complete. And I do have to say, this is why I love Lego. Just building this and having the first layer complete, this is just so sturdy. When I was building the original version, it just felt all so flimsy and the clutch power just wasn't quite as good. This holds itself together so well. I know a lot of people do love off-brand Lego sets, and I'm often being approached by various companies on my channel offering to send me sets for free so I can build and review them on my videos. But personally, I just love the feel of genuine Lego. And that's also not to put down anyone who do genuinely like building off-brand Lego. We all have personal preferences, and us all being different is what makes the world such an interesting place. But let's carry on building this Apple Mac. Now, in the original model, they next used 2 of these 4x4 hollow plates, but they had ugly notches on the side which made the sides not smooth, and also they needed them to hold all those multiple plates on the bottom layer together. But we can replace that with one giant 4x8. Now, in front of the 4x8, which is going to go across the middle, we are having a 1x4, and because we haven't got all that structure inside that they had, we are going to have to support it with a 1x1 brick. So I'm putting a 1x1 on there, and that's going to sit just about here with the 4x8 behind it. And then on the opposite side to the 1x4, we just got a 1x1 on that corner. Then on the back here, they had 2 1x2s and 2 1x3s, but obviously we're going to replace that with a 1x6 like that. Then across the front they had 2 2x4s, and we're going to have a 2x8 instead, and that's a lot more sturdy than the original model. So next we're going to start to build up the walls, and we're going to have a 1x3 and a 1x3 and a 1x2 along the back, and then down the sides we're going to add some panels. A 1x2x2, another 1x2x2, and a third one here. And then just in between those two we're going to put 2 1x1 bricks like that, and then we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. Now just inside here we're going to need a little stack of a 1x1 brick and 2 1x1 plates, and I have a personal little trick for making sure that they sit square on top of each other. If you add them on top of each other like this, there's always the risk that they will be slightly off and not quite adjusted, and then you have to twist them around and make sure you get them flush with each other. But what I do is build things like this sideways, so if you put a piece flat on the surface like that and push another one onto it, there's no way that they can't be flush, as they've got their edge sort of smooth against the table, and you always get them straight the first time. And that little stack goes just inside the panels on the right hand side there, and then next to those we've got a 1x3 plate in front of it, and then 2 1x2 jumper plates, and then on the end a 1x3 jumper plate like that. Next, on top of that 1x3 plate, we're going to put a 1x2 tan plate, and a piece that makes my heart very happy because it always reminds me of classic space, a 1x1 transparent green plate. Then next to that, on those jumpers, we've got a black tile and also a black jumper plate, just a 1x2 version. Then on each end of that we're going to put a 1x1 brick and a third 1x1 brick on top of the middle of that black jumper plate like that. Oh, not quite straight, straighten it up, and there we have it. The next step's got a quite nice little technique. We're going to add a 1x6 plate across the front, and now we've got our disk drive slot there with the light. And then to reverse the studs on these, we've got these 2 Technic pieces, so we can pop one of those on top of the 1x1 brick on one side and the other one on the other side. Now they're ready to receive studs the other way up. Next, across the front, we're going to put 8 of these headlight bricks. And with all those in place, at one end we've got a 1x1 tile like that, and next to it we've got a 1x1 dark tan plate, and they did have 2 1x3 tiles, but obviously reducing parts and reducing joins, we're going to get a 1x6 tile for a much smoother look. Now turning to the back, we've got a 1x6x5 panel to go in the middle, and like I said, they used a stack of bricks on the corners, but we're going to use 1x1x5s because Lego make those, and again less joins, smoother look. And then on the first side, another one of those 1x6x5 panels, and again in front of that we're going to use a 1x2x5 brick instead of a stack of bricks. And then at the front we're going to have a 1x6 plate, and again they use 2 1x3 tiles, but we're going to use a 1x6. And then we're going to start building the really cool curved screen. Now the base of the screen is going to be 6x5, so we've got a 4x4 to start with, and we're going to put 2 2x3s across it like that. then 3 more facing the other direction, and we've got our 6x5. Now they used one of those weird 4x4 with the cutout in the middle plates, but as it's Lego, I'm just going to use a regular 4x4, and that's going to give us a little bit more strength as well. Now to hold out the screen, we're using these 1x1 bracket pieces and also these 1x2 inverted curved slopes, and one of those sits on the back of that bracket like that, and then we're going to make exactly the same piece again. And then these are going to sit on the back of the monitor like that. And you'll see that those 2 studs are now facing downwards, and they're going to marry up with the 2 Technic pieces we have inside. Then to smooth off the screen, we're going to have a nice tile surround. So we're going to have a 2x2 corner tile in each corner, strangely enough, like that. And then in between them, at the bottom and the top, we're going to have a 1x2 tile like that, and then on the sides a 1x1 tile. Now in the centre of this, we've got a mixture of tiles and plates. We've got a 1x4 tile at the top, and then another one of those 2x2 corner tiles down there, and then we've got a 1x1 plate there, a 1x1 plate at the top like that. And then underneath that, we're going to have a 1x2 tile. So we've got a mixture of plates and tiles, but we've got a few studs to add the curved screen onto. Now initially when I saw this, it seemed quite a strange build until I realised that those 2 studs on the left hand side there sit in the back of the 2 anti-studs on this 2x3 like that, to offset it ever so slightly. And then the 1 stud on the other side sits in the 1 anti-stud on the 2x2. So you've got a 2x5 row of plates offset by half a stud in the middle of the screen. And then on top of that, we're going to get 4 of these 1x4 curved slopes like that, which give us that wonderful retro cathode ray tube curve on the screen. We had none of those flat panel monitors back in the 80s, so we've got a lovely curved screen ready to go inside our monitor. But just before we do, we are going to need some studs on top of this to attach the top of the computer to it. And for that, we're going to use these 1x1x2 brackets. And we're going to have a whole row of those. We're mounting them effectively on their backs along the top row of the monitor like this. Top row of the screen, rather. So we've got all 6 of them running along there. So you can see when we mount our screen inside the computer, we're going to have a row of studs on top to mount things to. So the 2 studs from the brackets underneath are going to sit inside of those 2 Technic pieces like that, and they sit quite nicely there. And then we're going to finish off the other side as we did the first side with a 1x6x5 panel and a 1x2x5 brick. Now starting to build the lid for the back of the computer, they again use lots of 2x4 plates, but we can use a 4x6. And then what we're going to do is stick a 1x4 plate on each end, and they filled in the middle with lots of 2x2 plates, but we're going to use 2x4s because it'll look much nicer. Next we're going to build that iconic slope at the back of the Apple Mac. So we're going to start off by adding 2 1x3 plates on top like that, and then we're going to add some 2x3 plates on top of those so that they stick out on each side. Then we've got some 45-degree slope pieces, and they're going to click on each side there. We are going to add some more on the outside, however, because these got plates underneath, we're going to need to add some plates underneath the other 2. And for that, we're going to use 2 1x1s, and I'm going to again rub those on the table to make them lined up with each other so they're nice and smooth. This one, that's in a much worse shape, but give it a quick rub on the table and they're perfectly lined up. And there's the back of our computer, and that's going to get placed on the back here, and hopefully all those pieces should line up nicely, which they do. And I must say that clicked in place much easier than the previous version did of the non-Lego brand. Now the other part of the top you can see was made up by a whole host of different plates. We've got some 2x4s, some 2x2s and some 1x4s, but we're going to replace all that with just 2 pieces. The Lego version is going to be a lot more sturdy by just using a 4x8 and a 1x8. And again we're going to cover that in tiles. We're going to use the same ones as the Clone Brand does. There wasn't much point in swapping any of these out. So the 3s in the middle and the 2s on the edge like that. But most importantly, it's on a one long solid plate. And then we're going to stick a 1x4 underneath it like that, and then that's going to sit on top. Now this piece is due to sit just on top there. However, in the original model, you'll see that this part here, that 1x4 plate, is just only covering up the gap between the lower part and the upper part. If you push this down, you can see there is a bigger gap there. And also this is very flimsy on top because we haven't got that strength going all the way across because it's made up with multiple plates. So just to make sure we don't have any slight gap peeking out, we're going to actually add another 1x4. This is the only extra part I'm adding into the original set. Then the whole piece should go on top quite happily like that, and then there's no gap down there at all. And then we just tie the back and the front parts together with 2 more 2x3 tiles like that. And when we put the 2 side by side, you can see pushing down here, this is a much more solid build than this one where everything ever so slightly flexes. So that's the main computer done. Now we move on to the keyboard. So the keyboard, although looking pretty good, is so fragile. If you just give it a little bit of a wobble, you can see that all these parts just come apart from each other. So instead of using these multiple plates, what we're going to use is a 4x8 and a 1x4 on the end. You can even see that the whole of the bottom row of keys is just held on by one stud there. You can see it sits underneath there, and that's being held on by one stud. Then the other end is just being held together by friction. So on top of our plates, we're going to add some corner tiles in each corner, strangely enough. So we've got 2x2s there, and then we're having a whole load of jumper plates. We're adding 1 on each end like that. Then we've got 5 along the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then underneath, we're going to have 4 more. 1, 2, leave a space. 3, 4, and then we're just putting a 2x2 tile in the middle, and that is so much stronger already. Now for the keys, I've actually done a colour swap here. Instead of using the dark tan, I'm using the dark bluish grey, as on my computer I seem to remember my keys being a lot more of this colour. So we've got a 2x4 and a 2x3, and then a 1x6 underneath. So we've done the whole keyboard out of 3 pieces, whereas you can see the original one we had several 2x2s, a 1x2, a 1x3 and another 1x3, which also didn't help much. If this had been a 1x6, the whole thing would have held together a lot better. Now at the back underneath, we're going to add one of these 1x1 brackets on the end there, and then also a couple of plates to give us our keyboard stand so it slopes ever so slightly forward, and this is our connection point for the cable. So you can see the keyboard now just slopes ever so slightly. And now we're going to move on to building the mouse, and that all-important piece which doesn't exist in genuine Lego. And we're going to start with a 1x2 plate, and on top of that we're going to add a 1x2 cheese slope, and then underneath it we've got 2 headlight bricks. 1, 2. And in the original set they chose to do different coloured buttons, so we've got a dark grey to match our keyboard and a tan on the other side. And then underneath we're adding 2 plates like that, and on the face of it they look identical. However, you'll notice on the non-Lego version we haven't got the underneath of a plate like we have on our version. We've got a jumper plate, and if I take the string off, they don't have their string attached to their studs like that. They're 2 separate pieces. We've got a jumper plate there, and this is the magic piece which Lego don't make. And it's a single 1x2 plate, however it's got studs on both sides. So in a very small gap, a very small space, we've managed to reverse the stud direction. So we've got those 2 pointing in there, and then we've got the jumper plate on the end so we can attach our cable on the end. So as it is, we could attach our cable on the side so it wouldn't be centered. However, the really easy way to get around this is if we remove the last plate and we replace it with a jumper plate, and obviously the jumper plate has a hollow stud so that can sit on top of there like that, and it also has the anti-studs underneath in the middle, so we can still attach our cable to the middle of the mouse. So that's a very easy fix for a piece that doesn't exist in LEGO, but do let me know in the comments below, what do you think about that 1x2 plate with studs on both sides? Would it be a useful piece for LEGO to make, and do you think they will ever make one? But enough about that, let's attach our keyboard and our mouse to our computer. So for our keyboard, we've got a 10 stud long rope piece, and they both have, well, it has studs on both ends. Let me attach one end to the keyboard, or if I can get hold of it, like that. Spin the cable around slightly. And then the other one sits on that headlight brick just underneath the monitor down there. So there's our keyboard. And then for our mouse, we've got a much longer 20 stud long rope piece, because that's got to connect at the back of the computer. Let's do that first. Connect that on there, and then run that round and attach it to that jumper plate in the middle at the back of the mouse. Now from a distance, these two don't look very different, but when you get up close and stability wise, they really are very different. I do feel that the drawing lines really do fit together just a little bit closer on the LEGO version, and also you don't get these different levels between bricks. It's a lot more smoother all over. Also, like I said, stability wise, because they wouldn't use larger pieces because they have to fit it in that sort of round ball, they just don't have the strength on top, so these pieces just flex far too much. And nothing seems to sit quite as flat and flush as it does on the LEGO version. When I rub my finger over, I can feel differences in heights of all these plates as opposed to the LEGO version, which is just completely smooth. Now I know a lot of people really do like these off-brand LEGO products, and you do tend to get a little bit more for your money. Although I have noticed recently that the prices of these off-brand sets are starting to creep up quite a bit. And personally, from building these side by side, I still think that LEGO parts click together in a much firmer, more solid way than other brands. As I said earlier, the other two sets which I was quite interested in this series were the Retro TV and the 80s cassette stereo. Now I have already bought the Retro TV, although I haven't opened it up and built it yet. But if people are interested, I'm going to open it up, work out what parts are in it, and see how we can improve it with genuine LEGO parts. For fans of my upscaling builds, you'll be pleased to know that I nearly have all the green parts I need to make the entire base plate. So my first snack bar video should be coming in a few weeks' time. As always, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up and share it around. It really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. If you'd like to support the channel, you could consider becoming a channel member and getting your name on a book in my videos. Or if you're buying from lego.com, please use my affiliate link in the description below. But above everything else, please make sure you subscribe for more LEGO videos.